Hello, and welcome to Pacoima History Day 2020. I'm Crystal Jackson, President of the Pacoima Historical Society. Due to COVID-19, we're hosting our History Day celebration virtually this year. And what we have done is put together a journey of prior history days, community stories, along with special awards to individuals and organizations that exemplifies the legacy of activism in Pacoima. We will be joined today by our state lawmaker, Assemblywoman Luz Rivas, who grew up in Pacoima and will be receiving our Public Service Award. We have a legacy of Pacoima's Trailblazer, Marie Harris, who designed the community from the ground up. We will be presenting a Special Inspiration Award to Angela Padilla for her work elevating the importance of mental health. Joining her will be her husband, California Secretary of State, Alex Padilla. Our tradition of recognizing historic businesses is elevated today by presenting the director of the Boys and Girls Club of the San Fernando Valley, Nicole Chase, with our historic nonprofit organization award. We also give recognition to our boots on the ground, those who work to teach our children, as we recognize our own Diane Velarde Hernandez for her extensive and impactful teaching career at San Fernando High School. Her family came to Pacoima when it was orange trees and farmland, and after college she came home to teach in our own hometown and make a difference. It is the selfless people in Pacoima that we also like to recognize, those who help the community by volunteering in any way they can. And today we give the Humanitarian Award to Michelle Rogel. We're also going to have a second-generation activist, Ernesto Ayala, who's going to talk about Black and Brown unity in Pacoima today. And as a special treat, we're going to have a story on our very first Congresswoman out of Pacoima, a San Fernando High graduate, Barbara Lee. And we'll tell you all about her story and how she became the first cheerleader of color at San Fernando. So we have a lot of stories for you today, so please stay with us as we go along with the theme for Pacoima History Day 2020 of activism and politics. So you have a lot to learn, a lot to see. Stay with us. Pacoima has a history that has been hidden for decades. The Pacoima Historical Society is on a mission to preserve and save that history. To do that, we initiated Pacoima History Day, a way to honor the best of the community's members and pay tribute to the town's legacy. Let's take a look back at prior history days.
It's very emotional because it's always coming home when I'm here in Pacoima. I only grew up a few miles away from here. And this is a community I never left because I know how important it is that we continue to give back, because the progress that we want to see in our community is really incumbent upon each and every one of us being a part of that change. And what's spectacular about the establishment of this Pacoima Historical Society is that in order for us to progress, we need to know our history, we need to know our roots, and we need to understand the diversity and embrace that going forward, because that's very important. And we have a very rich and diverse history here in Pacoima that we should all be incredibly proud of.
Thank you so much for this honor. It means so much to me, and I'm so proud that we are keeping Pacoima history alive. Yeah. The interview we did a few minutes ago, why is this event important? Why are you here today? If you go around the Los Angeles area, we all know this, right? And you say, oh, we're from Pacoima. What do most people usually think? right? They overlook a lot of why we are proud of Pacoima and the Northeast San Fernando Valley. But you know what? If you go all the way to Massachusetts, there's this university out there called the Massachusetts Institute of Technology that I had a chance to study in and get my engineering degree in, and I wasn't the only one. There's been a whole pipeline of young people from Pacoima, San Fernando, Silmar, all through San Fernando High School, go Tigers, that have gone to MIT to get their engineering degree. So if you go to Massachusetts and you ask them, what do you think of Pacoima? They think, oh, it must be one of the best places in California. They send smart students, young black and brown kids that are doing well. If you go to Sacramento, the California state capital, and you ask them, so what do you think about Pacoima? They're going to be like, I don't know, man, there's something special in that place. Because you've got assembly members and senators and Congress members and secretaries of state that come out of Pacoima. So yes, we're proud of Ritchie Valens, right? But there is so much that our community is proud of. We're scrappy, we work hard, we're proud, we have our issues, we have our challenges, but that doesn't stop us. The family of Pacoima, the spirit of Pacoima is one that's always working hard to get ahead. And as long as the next generation has a little bit better than we did, then we're making progress. And so as I look around the neighborhood and compare to what it was like when I was growing up, we got some new good schools, Vaughn Elementary, right? We got new restaurants popping up and down Van Nuys Boulevard. We have the Discovery Cube Los Angeles. Think about that. The Children's Museum for Los Angeles, state of the art. It's not downtown. It might have been okay for a while, or on the west side, too much traffic. It's right here in the Northeast Valley, right in the backyard of Pacoima for a reason. And so while we keep working on the issues that we got to address, economics, education, healthcare, environment, etc., it is important that we celebrate the good things that have come out of Pacoima, the good things that are happening in Pacoima, so that not just my kids, but all of our kids and eventually grandkids know that they come from a place, their roots are somewhere that they should be proud of. So I'm just a kid from Pacoima trying to do good. Thank you for this recognition.
Hi, I'm Sal Rodriguez, drummer of the group War, and I want to congratulate PHS on this year's Pacoima History Day, and I want to encourage everyone to get out and vote.
Pacoima Historical Society was formed in 2016 after me and my brothers Lon and Lance Grandison produced the film Pacoima Stories Land of Dreams. This film was the beginning of telling the story of Pacoima. What we learned was the most historic town in Los Angeles had no documented history, and what little they had was mostly incorrect. The film Pacoima Stories Land of Dreams talked to longtime residents and obtained oral testimonies to begin the long journey of telling Pacoima's amazing history. When I first started the film, I didn't know what I would find. I ended up finding the Tatavian, an Indian tribe who are indigenous to Pacoima, a village they once called Pacoinga. The name evolved because the settlers could not speak the Takic language properly. The truth is, Pacoima was here long before America and has a fascinating hidden history. Here's a clip from the award-winning film Pacoima Stories Land of Dreams that reveals that untold story.
Located in the city of Los Angeles, on the northeast side of the San Fernando Valley, the story of Pacoima dates back more than 1,500 years to a time before our great country began. A time when a tribe of Native Americans settled in this area and lived comfortably and peacefully in 450 AD. They called the land Pacoinga Village. Their remarkable story of the mission era and losing their tribal members to disease and the American version of the Indian Holocaust will send chills through your body.
The missions were bad, they're brutal, they beat people because they didn't want to study the Catholic religion.
As the land of Pacoinga Village grew, The 1800s saw new settlements, greed, and racial divide as the San Fernando Valley emerged. This land was renamed Pacoima and was to become the unofficial minority area of the San Fernando Valley.
One of the areas that was open to the Japanese and other minorities as well was this area of the East Valley called Pacoima.
For many decades, it was the only place people of color could purchase land.
My father and my mother wanted to start a ranch, and they decided to buy the house here in Pacoima.
It was in 1951 housing tracts were built specifically with African Americans in mind and began selling for $5,000. The market was so successful they built more and doubled the price. Blacks kept coming, the developers kept building, raising the price, and blacks ended up having a community like no other. Doctors, lawyers, professionals, teachers, and principals made up a class of people in Pacoima that no one could have anticipated.
The people that lived in Pacoima had far more per capita income than other areas.
NFL stars, boxers, singers, congressmen and women, Major League Baseball stars, as well as NBA stars all came from the town of Pacoima. The list is massive.
My teammate was Manfred Moore, who grew up on my street. He was our tailback. And I remember the coach, he says, "Davis, you got to get in there. Harvey's hurt."
Railroad tracks divided Mexican and black communities, and this program will explore how the two joined forces in the 50s.
We had to organize to keep the white gangs off of us.
Then came something that brought this town to its knees. The 80s crack epidemic, which sent Pacoima into a spiral of catastrophic proportions. Gangs and drugs took control. Violence erupted, and many residents fled, and those that stayed lived with bars and fear. But one thing remained, and that is the love for this town. The American dream, along with the American nightmare, is where this documentary will take you. Stay with us as we explore the untold history of Pacoima. This is Pacoima Stories.
The Los Angeles Daily News called Pacoima Stories the most comprehensive documentary ever produced on Pacoima. But the film just scratched the surface. In 2019, a 650-page book was released called The Entrance Pacoima Story, which is basically an encyclopedia of information from the early days, the notable people, and events. It has musicians, actors, athletes, you name it, we tried to uncover it. The book tour was cut short due to the pandemic, but still we rise. When you examine the history of activism and politics in Pacoima, it reveals how Pacoima organized, strategized, marched, and protested when they were faced with injustices. Major results came from actions due to our town's efforts, including the establishment of Pan-African Studies and Chicano Studies departments at Valley State College, now known as CSUN. Sharon Emery was there in 1968 and a part of a group of students who revolted against the racist structure of the school.
On January 9th, 1969, we were protesting in front of the administration building, and the doors busted open, and the police came out and beat us. You know, they swung guitar, they were swinging left, they were swinging right, and they hit my friend in the eye, and his eye, he blinded him with a baton. And Sheldon Jones is his name, Sheldon Jones. And I know I was kneeling next to him, and they gaffled me up. I don't know how many people went to jail that day. It wasn't many. And the next day we went and protest in front of the administration building again. But this time there were teachers, you know, there were professors and white students and everybody of every color. because they'd seen that what they had done to us, like it is now, like these children are now. They've seen what happens, and they didn't think it was right. So the next day when they took everybody to jail, they took 250 people to jail.
Pacoima has always had racial disparities from the early days when whites lived on one side of the tracks and Mexicans on the other. But when the blacks came to the San Fernando Valley, the black and brown brothers and sisters learned early on that they were stronger when they worked together. It wasn't that there weren't problems, because there were, but in times of struggle, from blatant racism to busing, the two united and saw the power. Together, we accomplished some major changes. Then something happened. We stopped. Demographics changed, and we wound up back to square one, lashing out at each other. So Pacoima is doing what it has always done, hit the ground running to fix this problem, because we are stronger together. Ernesto Ayala is here to tell us about Black and Brown unity that is building today in Pacoima. Welcome, Ernesto.
Well, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. Ernesto, tell me a little bit about your family, being from Pacoima and San Fernando, and about La Raza Unida.
Yeah, sure, thank you. Yeah, well, my family, we've been here for quite a long time, a few generations, and I know some of my family members, they were some of the original Mexican people in San Fernando, on the Mexican side. And from there's been a long history. My family was during the Depression, they were deported, and my grandfather he migrated back, and eventually he brought my grandmother, his wife over there, which he met over there, and my dad and all that, and yeah, so they came back home. And everything that was going on, the struggle, first for civil rights, and Chicanos seeing that the African Black community, were organizing this, inspired a lot of Chicanos, obviously, as well, because segregation was also happening here, which is something people forget. My father told me how, for example, it was called, well, it was later on it was called the Azteca Theater. It's no longer there, but the building is there. I forgot what it was called before, but it was there in San Fernando, and it was segregated between, the white people could sit on the, the front row, the bottom row, and the Mexican Chicanos and the Black people had to sit on top, far away.
So today, we had the George Floyd killings that has woken up a bear that has been sleeping for quite a while. And a lot of people in Pacoima, especially you, have seen that we need to fix some things, not just with police, but with ourselves too. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the Black and Brown unity that's going on in Pacoima today.
Yeah, well, we're working on this together with, different organizations, activists, individuals, on both sides, African Black people and Chicanos, Mexicans, quote unquote Latinos, or what we say La Raza. But, we're working on this, because it just makes sense, it doesn't make sense that they pit us against each other, they pit us against each other, but we, at the end of the day, we live in the same neighborhoods, we go to the same schools, we work in the same places, we cry and we sing the same, uniquely, but we do the same thing and for the same reasons, we're all, we're people that are trying to make ends meet, trying to put a roof over our families' heads, food in our bellies, so we have way more in common.
So tell me about some of the events that you've had in order to promote this message that everyone needs to hear of, we all need to get together.
Yeah, well, we had a very beautiful event when this was had to be already 2 months ago, when everything was coming out with, George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and all the demonstrations and all that, we organized in a week, an event that brought together nearly 1,000 people. I don't know how many, there was a lot of people. and we had it there at the El Tigre, the abandoned El Tigre on Osborne and Laurel Canyon. And, and we did it with a purpose. We wanted to give that message. And I think that's kind of what people have been trying to say. I mean, even though they don't say it outright, but, the reason a lot of Mexicans, Chicanos, quote unquote, Latinos, indigenous people are involved in these demonstrations is because this is an issue that affects us as well. So we see, what happened to George Floyd, and it's something that we've seen as well. What happened, with all the other people that have been, Black people that have been murdered by the police or beaten and all that. It's like, well, we know what that is, So that should be, this point that brings us together. Like, we understand that. I mean, the beating of Rodney King was here in Pacoima or Lakeview Terrace and in between right there. So it's something that hits home, that's part of our history, And so we made that event, we're trying to bring that message, and it was so beautiful. I remember, of all the things that I remember, there was, like young people that spoke, there was, women that spoke, but I remember this older gentleman, African-American gentleman, and he wasn't an activist, he wasn't anything like that, he was just a regular man, driving back home from Target. And he stopped by, and he came and he asked, he was like, very insistent, can I speak? I want to speak. And we were like, of course you could speak, And he said, like, probably the most beautiful message. He was like, I saw this happening and I started crying. I had to stop in my car and I started crying, and because I saw my Latino brothers and sisters doing this. And I was like, wow, man, that's, seeing an older person say that, I was like, well, of course, man, that's what it's about. That's that unity. We need to build these bridges and ignore all, we can't ignore it, but we need to, push it off. All the junk that they've thrown at us. So we fight each other. So we hate each other. So we attack each other. They make us think that we're each other's problems. We don't cause each other's problems. We're both the victims of the same problem, which is people from the outside. That
right.
There's been unfortunately and it saddens me, but there's been instances locally of violence still amongst our peoples, and we're trying to figure out how do we solve this? How do we put a stop to this? How do we bridge that gap that? There should be no gap. We're neighbors.
The message is we're stronger together.
Exactly.
Thank you, Ernesto, for coming and being a part of virtual Pacoima History Day 2020. And anything that can be done, we can do all together. So thank you so much. Pacoima's attitude towards activism and serving the community led to some of its residents rising to the highest level in politics. Local San Fernando High School graduates, including US Congressman Tony Cardenas, California Secretary of State Alex Padilla, and Barbara Lee, who became the very first US Congresswoman from our town, have paved the way for a new generation of political leaders from Pacoima. Representative Barbara Lee's story is particularly inspiring as she began her journey as a teenager at San Fernando High, when she challenged the school's white majority to allow minorities to become cheerleaders during the 60s. She paved the way for girls of color by having the NAACP talk to the schools to change the rules, making her the first Black cheerleader at San Fernando High. But Ms. Lee didn't stop there. Inspired by the first Black US Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, Barbara began her career after college when she found herself divorced and raising 2 young boys. After the death of Congressman Ron Dellums, Barbara decided to run for his seat. She was in Oakland during that time and has been a congresswoman now for over 20 years. She has interacted with President Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Senator Kamala Harris. Her activism still continues as she fights the fight that many of us are dealing with today. You can see that as she expresses herself on the House floor.
Young people from all backgrounds are demanding action and have said to the world that enough is enough. As the mother and grandmother of Black men and boys, I had too many painful conversations, as do all Black families, about what to do to make sure their encounters with the police are not deadly. The trauma around these fears are lifelong. This is not normal. But for African American parents, sadly it is. The tragic murder of George Floyd and so many African Americans around the country, including my own district with Oscar Grant, The world is watching today, Mr. Speaker. The United Nations passed a resolution condemning the violent practices perpetrated by law enforcement against people of African descent in the United States of America. Let us show the rest of the world that we truly intend to live up to our creed of liberty and justice for all, and yes, that means also Black lives do matter.
Barbara Lee is not alone. During the 80s and 90s, Pacoima found itself fighting the battle of drugs like never before. That, coupled with the long-standing issues of employment, housing rights, and police brutality injustices, led to the rise of unprecedented community activism. One of the most prominent activists of that era was a man I got to know personally. Jose de Sosa is former president of the San Fernando Valley NAACP and was one of the leaders who organized the community to get Police Chief Daryl Gates to resign. He successfully got the Supreme Court to halt the use of the battering ram that was being used recklessly in Pacoima. There was also a man I got to know, Reverend Arthur Broadus, who walked the streets to deal with the crime element that was turning our once peaceful community into something we didn't recognize. Both of these great activists spoke on their experience.
We conducted weekly demonstrations in front of the LAPD or in downtown LA, because that's where the police headquarters is. So we had demonstrations during the week and on weekends. And we had a march where Maxine Waters and Congresswoman Watson, Diane Watson. So they both were there, and then we had other heads of different organizations, and we had a large march on a Sunday afternoon, and we had maybe over 2,000-3,000 people that was in that march. And we conducted demonstration every day, and finally the chief decided that he would retire after so many. So by his retiring, he was able to vacate that office.
People were coming to my office saying, we're having this problem. A lady from the Lakeview Terrace Apartments off of Fillmore, she was just inundated with the drug dealing in her area. So she asked, what can we do? What can we do? And I said, well, I really don't know. Let's sit down and talk about it. So myself, Rose Castanedas from, she at that time was working for Howard Berman's office. We thought, well, why don't we just start some marches just to make people aware of what's going on. So several weekends, we would go just in different neighborhoods. We would just have a few people that would just come. We said, mark down the sidewalk. And the Lord blessed me with a voice. So I kind of use it like a Pied Piper situation. So I would say, save our children. We need our children. I would say things like that. People would come out and see what was going on, and they were appreciative of what was happening, because we're making people aware of their surroundings, that we know this is happening. Even if the dealers were there, we want you to know we don't want you killing our children. There was one event we did on Van Nuys and Glen Oaks, going by Rucker's mortuary, and I asked Joe Rucker, can I use one of your caskets, baby caskets, to make an impact as we go down Glen Oaks? He said, sure. We carried that casket. This is going to happen to our children, not just the drugs, but the shooting and all the things that are happening that these children have nothing to do with. And we want you all to be aware, you're affecting families.
Some of the activism never made the headlines or Supreme Court rulings, but were just as powerful. The story of Daniel Lozano, who was one of the first Mexicans to work at General Motors, is one of them. His story of combating injustices at General Motors in the 50s is just as compelling and led to GM hiring many Mexicans during a time of racial uncertainty. It's stories like his that fly under the radar and still create change that we never hear about.
53, I started working in General Motors, all the way from General Motors. I started, it was rough too. It used to be kind of rough, and the Mexicans, they're suing General Motors at first, but we keep it up. We're fighting back. not but fist, but with the work, you know, physical work.
So what kind of challenges were there?
Well, they used to give us the worst jobs in the plant, you know, the more it would take a lot of physical work, you know. At that time, we were only about 4 Mexicans started there working, you know. Then after that, you know, we showing that it wasn't true what they believe about the Mexicans. We were lazy, you know. They used to tell us, "Oh, Monday's just you're not gonna be here Monday because you're gonna be tired, you're gonna be drunk." And they said, "Okay, that's what you think. That's fine, you know." But we fight him, you know, not by fist, but physically, you know, show him that we can do the job. We used to do it. It wasn't easy, but we proved ourselves that we used to do it. Then after that, in 53, 54, they hire more Mexican people. 55, they hire more Mexican people. But since then, they hire more Mexican people than anybody else.
Your life began right here, in this your native land. The history is clear, you were dealt an awful hand. Your ancestors paved the way, always respecting these lands. But from far away, landing on your shores, came the others with a different plan. Somos de América, somos de América. We're from America, America. The Creator made this earth with room for you and me, giving all our rights at birth, in the land of the brave and free. Doesn't matter if you're black or white, brown, red, and yellow, it's alright. Takes all the colors of the rainbow to make a picture bright. Somos de América, América, América. We're from America. Somos de América, América. We're from America. Somos de
Thank you, Michael O'Neill, for that fabulous music video. As part of Pacoima History Day, we give out community awards to outstanding and historic achievements. This year, we have 6 categories that represent Pacoima's legacy regarding activism and politics. This year, coincidentally, they all happen to be women, and deservingly so. Our first award story highlights an educator whose impact on her students has been everlasting. Diane Velarde Hernandez is that person. She, along with her family, have a Pacoima legacy lasting nearly half a century.
Hi, my name is Natalie Hernandez Wangro, and Diane Velarde Hernandez is my mom. I have 2 sisters. My older sister's name is Karina Hernandez, and my youngest sister's name is Jenna Hernandez. I'm talking about my mom because she is one of the most incredible women that I have ever met. She's smart, she's funny, she's tough, but she's also kind and a completely free spirit. My mom taught my sisters and I one of the greatest lessons of all that we could learn coming from such a strong woman, which is the virtue of freedom. And what I mean by that is the freedom to follow our own paths, the freedom to be independent thinkers, and the freedom not to feel bound by conventional norms. You know, not feeling like we had to get married when we were in our 20s or have children right away. My mom always taught us that we should never worry about what other people think about us, and we should always do what's right, but also what makes us happy. I am an attorney. I work for the district attorney's office, and I am lucky enough to work in a juvenile assignment in the Valley. I went to high school at San Fernando High School, which is a stone's throw from my office, and I take with me the lessons that my mom has taught me. One of the things that she really impressed upon us was to never forget where we came from, but always remember who we are. And that gave me a perspective, I think, of compassion and kindness in working with juvenile cases as a prosecutor. I mean, I went to the same high school that these children went to, these young folks went to. I hung out with a lot of kids that were doing the same kind of things, but there were a lot of decisions that I made that the youth that I deal with didn't necessarily make. But I give back that freedom and that strength that I was taught as a young woman, because that freedom comes with also the freedom to forgive ourselves and the freedom to make mistakes. No one is perfect, and we all have our story, but we also all have our future. So I think if there's anything that I could say is that being born to my mother gave me the courage and strength to be the best mother to my girls and to help make decisions that are going to influence the youth. And I'm so lucky.
I went to Pacoima Elementary, I went to McClay Junior High, and then I also was a student at San Fernando High School, and I graduated in winter '70. I went to San Fernando Valley State College, which later became Cal State Northridge. I always wanted to be a teacher. I was one of those kids in summer when everybody was off for summer school, and you got together with the neighborhood kids and played, hide and seek, dodgeball, baseball, all those games. And we kind of took turns choosing what we were going to play. I always wanted to play school, and then nobody wanted to play with me because it was like, it's summer, Diane, we don't want to play school. But I always wanted to be an educator, and I loved it. It was a passion that I had to be an educator, and it was a very, very rewarding career. I stayed at San Fernando by choice. I had many offers through my years of teaching there to go to other schools and to be an administrator, but that was not my calling. My thing was to be in the classroom. San Fernando High School was the most integrated high school in all of LA Unified. I mean, we had everybody there. One of my primary goals was to teach students how to think, not what to think. Because I came from women who were very independent and strong, our grandmother wanted to go to the Poor People's March in Washington, D.C., but she wasn't able to, but we went to local ones. And that was the other thing, because my grandmother and my mom, always encouraged activism and participating and voicing. I have 3 daughters, told my daughters and my students this: if you don't always know what you want, you better know what you don't want and what you're not willing to accept. And that it was important for them to learn to analyze. And so I always brought in guest speakers, I always brought in primary sources when possible, panels. And I worked at San Fernando at a time when I had fellow colleagues who were of the same ilk. And so we brought a lot of amazing people to our school. Cesar Chavez came twice. Roy Benavides, who was a Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, came and spoke to our students. So we tried to make it a very multicultural presentation so that students would learn a little bit about everybody and everybody's struggles.
I would like to thank the Pacoima Historical Society for acknowledging me and my 33 years as an educator. I chose to work at San Fernando High School, my alma mater, with hopes of being a motivator, an advocate for students, as well as hoping to inspire young people who walk the same hallways that I walked as a teen. I wanted them to know that they could, in fact, make their dreams realities. To this day, I get texts and emails from former students thanking me for guiding them. I would not be who I am if not for the strong women whose shoulders I stand on. My maternal grandma, Aurelia Camacho, and my mom, Genevieve Camacho Velarde. They were and continue to be my rocks, the ones who guided me and taught me by example how to be an independent thinker and strong woman. I hold them in my heart, and I'm thankful for the sacrifices they made to make my life and my brother's lives better, for instilling in me and us that education was the way to realize our dreams. I also want to acknowledge my brothers, Michael and Jimmy Velarde, for always having my back and for their loving and unconditional support. I want to thank and give props to my husband, Sergio, for supporting me in all my endeavors, for being my compañero, equals, and for not being intimidated by a strong, independent, and educated woman. Lastly, I want to thank my 3 beautiful, talented, intelligent daughters for their love and the relationship we have. They are strong women who work in fields that give back to and serve various communities. It goes without saying how proud I am of my 2 precious, smart granddaughters who, even at their tender age, show empathy for others. They are strong women in the making. They all inspire me to be a better person, and for that I am thankful. I am humbled by this recognition. I hope I make Pacoima proud.
There are so many people in Pacoima that have inspired us, and in today's world, it's what many of us need, inspiration. That is why this year Pacoima Historical Society is giving its first award in this category. In these COVID times, there are unspoken issues many of us don't talk about, and that is mental health. Even before COVID, there were mental health care issues that affected our community. Pacoima has been under stress for many of these issues, highlighted in this History Day presentation today. Black and brown issues, immigration issues, police brutality issues, to name a few. Plus there's fires, COVID-19, gang violence, job losses, hunger, the list goes on. And while we have people fighting for these injustices, very few fight for mental health. Angela Padilla began her quest in this area in 2017 after dealing with her mother's bipolar condition. She started a foundation to promote dialogue and resources to deal with this very important topic. Here's a clip from her organization.
Anxiety, depression, addiction, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, PTSD, eating disorders, thoughts of suicide. Mental health affects all of us. 1 in 5. That's how many people will experience some sort of mental health condition each year, with even more who are not diagnosed. Why don't we as a society have a better handle on it? Is it lack of understanding? Is it lack of funding? Is it lack of empathy? Is it lack of urgency? In 2017, we founded Fundamental Change to do our part in addressing this important issue, starting right here in Los Angeles. The mission of Fundamental Change is to eliminate stigma and raise awareness about mental health conditions, to increase access to care and quality of care for individuals living with a mental health condition, and to better support their caregivers. So how do we do this? Each May, Fundamental Change organizes a mental health symposium where community members, advocates, students, service providers, policymakers, and researchers come together to improve understanding about mental health and better coordinate services. We've launched our Sip of Hope series, where area residents come together at local coffee shops or other comfortable settings for genuine dialogue about suicide prevention, mental health, and well-being. We're also supporting mental health first aid. Just as with CPR and first aid classes, the more people who are trained and certified to help family members, friends, neighbors, and coworkers in need, the better for all of us. And we're establishing partnerships and investing in service providers with proven effective strategies. With more funding and advocacy, imagine the improved treatments and eventually the cures that are possible. With your partnership and support, imagine how many more people we can help thrive. It's time that we treat mental health with the love, the care, and the humanity that it deserves. To learn more, visit us at fundamentalchange.life.
As you can see, she is putting in a lot of work on this topic. She is the mother of 3 boys and the wife of California's Secretary of State, Alex Padilla. So many times women behind the men get overlooked, but not her, not today. Pacoima Historical Society gives its 2020 Inspiration Award to Mrs. Angela Padilla. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, Crystal. Thank you so much. Wow, what an honor. And I am truly humbled to receive this award. And with that, thank you for highlighting mental health. It's something that affects, like you said, our communities so much, and we can use so much more support. And so thank you for bringing this to light today.
Well, thank you for your work. Tell me how you got started in it.
Sure. It's been a lifelong journey for me. I've been advocating for my mother's health for many, many years since I was a teenager. She was diagnosed with bipolar 1 with schizoaffective disorder, which means that our family really had to pull together and try to find her the support that she needed. Back then, there was even less resources than there are today, less services that are available. So you can imagine that our family just, had a very hard time trying to navigate through this. So it's been a passion of mine since I was very young, and knowing, what my mother has gone through and how far she's come and how well she's doing, I feel like it's something that I have to share with everybody. A hope to know that, if she can do as well as she's doing today, there's really hope for everybody.
So Angela, how are your boys doing during these trying times?
Yes, like many families, we have 3 boys at home, and it isn't easy. We have the distance learning. They are, taking it one day at a time.
I can imagine. So now you're the wife of America's top or California's top politician, which we're very proud. San Fernando High graduate Alex has just made Pacoima so proud. But I can't even imagine the stress you're going through. How are you coping with that?
That's a great question. Well, I'll share with you 2 things that I learned while studying psychology in college that have been really, really helpful. One, learning how to compartmentalize. And 2, learning how to chip away at your stress. So, there's a lot going on right now. We have COVID. We have, the economic hardships that come as a result of it. And then we have, families have family stuff that they're dealing with. So kids at home, for example. So something that I really try to do is to put things in buckets. I take things on one thing at a time. So, with COVID, not everything is in my control, but what I can control is wearing a mask, washing my hands, washing our hands, and making sure that we're not going out to crowded places and putting ourselves at a higher risk. So I really try to just control what we can control. And that works for me. The second thing is I think exercise is really important. Mental health and physical health kind of go hand in hand. So you can't have good mental health without having good physical health, and you can't have good physical health without having good mental health. So I try to, exercise as often as I can, maybe not every single day just because of time, but I definitely, right now, I do put my physical health as a priority.
That's some really good advice. Thank you so much for that. You're doing a great job, and I hope everyone takes some of your suggestions, because I know I am, because that's really key to compartmentalize. I never really considered that, but that's very helpful to know how to deal with this. This is no joke.
Yeah.
And then we have this
really
big
is.
election coming up. So
that's right.
We got to get people to understand how to get out there and vote and make your choice as to which way. Have a plan, right? Have a plan on how you're going to vote.
Right, make a plan, know what you're going to do, and vote, register to vote, and vote early. That's key in this election.
Right.
And this is one of the most important elections of probably our lifetime. We've heard many people say it, and it's absolutely true, because there's so much on the line right now. So I do hope that everybody uses, the power that they have to go out and do their part this election.
Angela, do you have any favorite inspirational quotes?
I do, actually. One that I've had since I was a young girl that's really carried me through, and it's by Henry David Thoreau. And it's, if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with success unexpected in common hours. And I really believe that. I think, sometimes, things don't happen as quickly as we would like them to. But if you're patient and you just keep going, keep muddling, keep going, as much as you can, and you'll get to where you want to go. And that, I really believe, I'm a testament of that. My life story and my journey really proves that it's true.
Thank you so much for being an inspiration to us. And again, congratulations on the award. We're super proud of you. We're proud of your husband. We're proud of your family. And I did get to meet you a while ago at the 2018 History Day that we had at Bond Next Learning Center. And it was fun meeting you, and I'm inspired by you. Thank you so much, Angela.
Do you have another quick minute?
Yes.
Just a quick second? Okay, I'll be right back. Hold on.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Hello. How are you?
Busy.
I can imagine. Thanks for letting us steal her for a little bit.
Absolutely. She wasn't telling stories about me, was she?
No, it's all good. It's more. This was about the woman behind the man this time around. So I told her, that gets overlooked in all the stories. That the people I've interviewed, it's always the women that are doing a lot, but it gets it kind of gets overlooked. So it's time to give some attention to the one who's doing the homeschooling, some of the hard work. I mean, your work is, I can't even imagine what you go through.
Good if she didn't, have my back 100%. So
there you go.
I know his work is, and that's what I could do, is be a supportive partner and make sure that, the home stuff is taken care of, and that he gets meals every now and then.
Right.
Go in the room while he's on tons of Zooms and sneak some sandwiches or salads in there. So.
Well, we are so proud of you. We gave you the award in 2018, but you're still rising and doing such a great job. I can't even imagine the pressure you have. Well, we are so proud of you, Alex. We really are. So thank you for stopping through. I'm excited.
but want to say hello. So
Thank you so much. And we're proud of Angela. We need inspiration because and mental health is like huge. So people don't think about it. So I'm happy to even bring that to people so they know that there's resources out there, because a lot of people don't know where to go.
And as much good work as we've done, we still have so much more to do. So I just know that I'll be on that. Alex,
Yeah.
voting, and I'll take care of the democracy, and I'll take care of the mental health.
There you go. And we need it. They both go ahead. We all need it. So we need both. So you guys make us proud, both of you. So thank you so much.
Have a wonderful weekend.
Stay safe.
Okay, you too.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you both. Okay. Pacoima Historical Society has recognized many historic businesses in the past. Those businesses include Roman's Market, that had been around for 90 years, Tres Sierras Market, who celebrated 75 years in 2018, Stylesville Barbershop, that opened in the 50s, and Delgadio's Market, who opened in the 50s as well. Today, we are honoring a historic nonprofit that has impacted the youth of Pacoima beyond what anyone could have ever imagined. It was around 1966, a group of community leaders recognized the need for youth activities and social services in Pacoima. One of those leaders was Leroy Chase, who for over 50 years not only ran the Boys and Girls Club of the San Fernando Valley, but was an activist and community organizer engaging with any and everybody in Los Angeles. Mayors came to the club, beginning with Tom Bradley. He knew countless people, including vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris. Mr. Chase took over the Boys and Girls Club as director, and through the organization gave countless youth jobs and provided activities and growth for the kids of Pacoima. This organization is one of the oldest nonprofits in Pacoima today and is still running strong. Even in these COVID times, they are finding ways to keep the kids engaged, thanks to Nicole Chase, who took the reins after her father passed away. She is expanding and growing the organization, even with all the challenges that come with it. Here to accept the 2020 Award for Historic Nonprofit is an icon herself. Welcome, Nicole Chase. And thank you for accepting this award from Pacoima Historical Society.
I have to say, I purposely start with an and a wow, because Crystal, I can't tell you the number of times you have made history, you have brought to life the history in this community, and because it's so amazing and awesome, and it's so much bigger than what people have actually really embraced, and to make us a part of that conversation is both humbling and it's an honor to be presented with this award.
Tell us a little bit about your father and his run with the Boys and Girls Club.
I'm sitting in his office right now, and I refuse to change anything simply because it reminds me of his reach and how from the 6-year-old young person to our 98-year-old board member, and the impact that my father has had in this community and the people that he's brought to this club to help build the club. My father fought tooth and nail to make sure that we continue to get funding so that we could serve the youth and their families in this community. And it was a struggle. And at the time, he had an enormous support from Yaroslawski, former Supervisor Yaroslawski, and former Supervisor Antonovich. And that's what kept the program alive, and it's thriving today. And even with COVID-19, our counselors were still making sure that our young people that were being served in their households with the needs and the resources that they needed, addressing, the concerns or whatever the challenges were in that particular household. Beyond that, when you hear of the alumni and the alumni that are thriving, that walk through our doors. There was an alumni who owned a private jet airline out of Van Nuys Airport, a Black woman. We have a young man right now, Byron Minjivar, who is studying to be an engineer at UC Riverside. We have countless numbers, and I say countless in an amazing way, of youth who have gone on to pursue academic careers, their bachelors, their masters. We have judges who have walked through our halls, LAPD, LAFD, our current board chair, a former LA fire, a member of the LA Fire Department, who's now a businessman with the city of San Fernando, Ashkenazi Development. So Anthony Davis, who used to play for, please don't let me get this wrong, USC. So these are just this is a minute number of the people who my dad has touched. I'll even say this, Alex Padilla, that was the very first call that I had received the same day my dad passed. And I was shocked beyond belief when I got this call. And it was Alex. And I'm like, and you start going through the names. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Padilla, no, it's Alex. And he started reminiscing on the things and the history that my dad had provided, but even more so the personal side. What do you remember most about your dad? A challenging time and how you came through that. Congressman Cardenas, who I think one of his first jobs was working with the Boys and Girls Club, Richard Alacon. I mean, I can go on and on with the individuals. Mayor Garcetti has walked through our halls and who has worked with us to keep our services going and so that we can serve more people. But even more so, it's the young people. I don't know if anyone's had the opportunity to take a look at our website, but there's a young man named Caleb, I believe, who gives a tour of our facility. And Caleb has some challenges, but despite that, he knows that this is a home for him. It was a second home for so many youth. And that was a part of my dad's conversation. He's like, I want this to be a home, a second home, a third home, however they may see it, for all youth. Regardless of color, creed, religion, and all those things, regardless of their circumstances outside these doors, he says, I want them to be able to come in here, be a kid, have fun, and also realize too that they deserve the best, which is one of the other things that so inspired me about my dad. People assume, as much as I hate using that word, that it's okay to give secondhand. It's okay, they don't want the best. My dad was absolutely no. Our kids deserve the best. And if you've ever seen our gymnasium, that's it right there. From the huge, massive fan, to the floor, the design on the floor, all of those things. My dad said, his kids deserve the best. And so those are some big shoes.
Well, and I want to say you're doing a great job, because it's still continuing, and the comments that I'm hearing and the things I'm seeing and the virtual storytelling and and it's still going on though. You got more, just as many challenges as your dad had, but you're still persevering with it. Here's going to my next question, was that I wanted to ask you, what is the message for the young girls? Because they see you doing this. They see a woman doing basically what a man has been doing for a long time, but you're doing it. And what impact do you think that's having on the young girls?
I hope it's something that stands by. I hope that I am putting into action the words that I'm always trying to share, is that whatever your aspirations may be, you can make it possible. By no means is it an easy road, but every young person that comes in here has that unique ability of being awesome, that unique ability of strength, that unique ability of finding some way to connect and believe in themselves, to say, hey, I think I can do that. Or it might be bigger than this. It could be, I want to be vice president. I want to be president of the United States. I want to own my own business. I want to be a pilot. I want to be a scientist. It inspires me to continue to fight. And it's a hard fight, because as you know, we're a nonprofit, so fighting for funding is a challenge. But every time I see these young people, I'm like, okay, all right, we can do this. I may not have my coffee this morning, but I can see them. I got my energy. Okay, we can do this. So.
I want to say you inspire me, Nicole, from everything I've seen about you, everything I know about you, everything I read about you. I'm inspired by you, and I hope that this Boys and Girls Club continues for decades to come. I know how hard it is to find successors. You've done well for your dad. Hopefully there's going to be somebody to come along to keep this going for another 60 years. But, you know, we got to work at it, and we got to keep putting forth all the work people have done to make this community great. And you are right in there with it. So congratulations for the Historic Business Award for Pacoima Historical Society. And thank you for everything you've done.
Well, thank you. And thank you for making our history, for putting our history, sharing it with the masses. Thank you for keeping us alive.
Our next award goes to a historic figure that paved the road for those that followed. One who broke barriers, took leadership, and engaged with everyone. When you drive by the corner of Pacoima's most central intersection, Van Nuys Boulevard and Glen Oaks, that corner is named after her. It's called Marie Harris Square. It's the only corner in the city of Los Angeles named after a woman. Marie's story is told by her daughter, Rolene Naveja, in this clip from the film Pacoima Stories, Land of Dreams.
While the crack epidemic and violence plagued Pacoima, other leaders joined the battle to save their community. Marie Harris is one of those who helped lead the charge. I spoke with her daughter, Rolene Naveja, who shared her personal memories of this special woman.
My mother rolled up her sleeves and decided she had to get this community going. And from moving from being a dress designer into designing a community, she used to love to tell people that she was designing a community, and she did.
Ah, what a lady. What a lady. A dynamo. She had a dream and she pursued it. And she also ran for a council person in Pacoima, and she almost made it.
Marie was a role model for me. When I first came to this community, not just as the teacher, but when I really anchored down in the early 90s as the school principal in this area, she called me all the time, and I have lunch with her, and we always talk about what are we going to do to make this community better? Whose door can we knock in?
With the help of prominent members of the community, Marie Harris also formed the Pacoima Property Owners Association with the goal of making the community better. One of the first projects Marie, along with the help of her daughter Rolene, instituted was the Back to Pacoima Expo event, which took place annually from 1980 to 1987, making it the most popular annual event in Pacoima. Rolene's experience working in the music industry catapulted the Expo into a star-studded yearly celebration.
How Expo started was that year in 1980, it was the 100th birthday of the city of Los Angeles. So my mom said, well, let's do something here in Pacoima. K-Day was tremendously involved. They were eager to bring out the live broadcast, and with that connection, we were able to get people like Barry White, Anita Baker, the Brothers Johnson, the Commodores, Earth, Wind and Fire. Some members of Earth, Wind and Fire came. People in the community were excited. Everybody came out to Hanson Dam. They brought their picnic baskets. We had vendors. Expo grew year by year, the word of mouth, more and more, and we got a bigger crowd. We were able to bring a community together.
Pacoima Historical Society is proud to present its 2020 Trailblazer Award to Mrs. Marie Harris. Here's what our own Congressman Tony Cardenas had to say at the commemoration of Marie Harris Square in February of 2020.
Pacoima has a handful of individuals who have been able to be a congressman like myself after having been born and raised in this community, to be the Secretary of State of the state of California, Alex Padilla, who was raised in Pacoima. Luz Rivas, who grew up in a garage, raised by a single mother who raised two beautiful girls so that Luz Rivas can actually graduate from San Fernando High School, where many of us went to school, and then to be the first female ever in the history of that high school to go to MIT and to get a degree there, and then to go on to Harvard, and then to be asked by her friends in Pacoima to run for the state assembly, and now is the state assembly member who was born and raised in Pacoima to represent us in Pacoima in our state legislature. Nuri Martinez, who's a council member for the San Fernando Valley, Monica Rodriguez, who's a council member from the San Fernando Valley, who all grew up in this humble community called Pacoima. I just wanted to say, if it wasn't for Marie Harris, we could not have achieved what she dreamed for us, what she sacrificed for us, what she took her humble, loving self to be tough enough at moments, but at the same time to be kind enough and loving enough to demonstrate to us what it is to be a servant of the people. So I just wanted to share those words with you and say thank you so much for bestowing this respect on Marie Harris, but equally bestowing this respect on the beautiful people of Pacoima, because she represented the best in us.
Pacoima Historical Society has a tradition of recognizing citizens that go beyond the call of duty to help the community. We have recognized individuals for helping the homeless, building organizations such as Men that helps bridge the gap in poverty. It's the boots on the ground, the rolling up the sleeves, and not asking what can I do, but seeing what needs to be done and doing it that make a difference. Michelle Rogel was not born in Pacoima, but works harder for it than anyone. She now lives in Pacoima and provides resources for the community. Beyond that, she's volunteered at events for Senior Matters, where she walked for the elderly, Pueblo y Salud, food giveaways. She was at the Warriors for Justice with Councilwoman Nuri Martinez and other prominent women in the area, and at numerous engagements with Foothill Police Outreach. She is a volunteer that has endless energy and helps so many, but she also identifies things that hurt the community, such as trash on the street. She takes pictures and follows the tradition of if you see something, say something. And for those actions, Pacoima Historical Society gives the 2020 Humanitarian Award to Michelle Rogel. Welcome, Michelle. Michelle, tell us how you got started in the community here in Pacoima.
So first, I just want to say thank you both for working so hard on this, and thank you for recognizing me as being a Pacoima resident. I know I'm fairly new, but I always talk about Pacoima. So, you know, the way that I started, or the way I moved to Pacoima was really the murder of my grandmother, Marta Rogel. And you guys can Google it on the Daily Breeze, City of Carson, and it'll tell you a little bit more about it. And I literally, you know, buried my grandmother the day before Christmas, December 2016. And within a few days after that, I just packed up some of my stuff. I know my parents were in the midst of retirement and stuff like that, and I moved myself to Pacoima. And, you know, everybody grieves in their own way. My grandmother was, you know, a fantastic person. She would have helped so many people here in Pacoima. I know that for a fact, had she been given the opportunity to come here. So for me, when I first moved to Pacoima, which was January 2017, a few days after we buried her, I didn't really experience Pacoima. I didn't really go outside. I was just mourning her loss. And eventually, I ultimately went out to Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez de los Muertos event later that year in November. And I slowly was going to community events throughout, you know, that time frame. But I actually went there and I took pictures. I was going to try to volunteer, which I did. And I met a few people there, you know, from Pacoima Neighborhood Council. And then from there, they talked highly about Pacoima, all the good things, all the bad things, and the stuff that they wish could change. And I just said, you know, why can't you just make it change with just a few people, and they're like, oh, it's more than that. There's politics, there's funding, there's people that don't know about the information, the resources aren't here, we're forgotten, we're the community that doesn't vote. I got a whole list just standing outside of a table booth, and someone was telling me everything they saw for the last 30 years. And so I said, I feel like, I don't know you guys, but we can make a change here in this community, but you have to believe that it can happen. And they said, oh, we've been believing for the last 30 years. And I said, no, I'm really adamant. You have to believe that you can make change. I said, just start off with a few things. What is it? Outside of trash, outside of the graffiti, outside of people not getting services or resources, I said, just start off with a list and then just start making it happen. To me, in my mind, I'm like, it's doable. It's a lot of hard work, but I was just telling them, they're like, well, if you want to be so help Pacoima, why don't you join the neighborhood council? And I did. I joined the following month, and ever since then, I met so many great people, such as yourself, Crystal. I know you've been doing a lot of good work in the community. I believe I met you, I think, a few months after that, at some point too.
Yeah, no, you're at Pacoima Neighborhood Council when I first met you, and you're the one that actually helped me when we were working to get History Day started one year. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I knew you were special then. So you went beyond the call of duty, and you continued to do that. So I just really, really think you're deserving of this award, and we need more people in Pacoima like you.
Thank you.
Public service means considering the masses before yourself. It means governing the people and not enriching yourself. The 2020 Pacoima Historical Society's Public Service Award is going to a Pacoima native who rose from adversity to success as an assemblywoman. Luz Rivas was raised by a single parent in a converted garage in Pacoima. She attended Telfair Elementary when, as a 5th grader, became interested in technology and engineering. Luz continued learning about computer science while attending Pacoima Middle School and went on to San Fernando High School, where she set her path for college. She went on to MIT, where she got a degree in electrical engineering, then Harvard University, where she got her Master of Education. It's not just being smart that puts Luz in the elite category, but it's a reach one, teach one theory and contributing to the success of others that does it. In 2011, Luz founded the DIY Girls, a nonprofit designed to help girls grades 4 through 12 to become interested in science and technology. As Assemblywoman, she also got recognition for Pacoima's indigenous Tatavian tribe in California, which left only the federal government to get on board. Pacoima Historical Society recognized them as the original inhabitants of Pacoima in 2018. It is with great pleasure and honor we present Assemblywoman Luz Rivas with the 2020 Pacoima Historical Society Public Service Award.
Hello, I'm Luz Rivas, Assemblywoman for the 39th Assembly District, which is the East San Fernando Valley. I am honored and proud to accept the Public Service Award from the Pacoima Historical Society. I love what the society is doing to preserve the history of Pacoima. I grew up in Pacoima. My family came from Mexico in the 50s and 60s to Pacoima. I've heard a lot of stories, and so it's great that we have this society that is keeping our history, and so that we remember what Pacoima is like and what it will be in the future. I grew up on Penny Street near what is now Bobo's Burgers. I went to Telfair Elementary. That's where I became interested in STEM, and from there, that led me to a career in engineering. So it's because of Pacoima that I ended up in engineering and STEM. After graduating from San Fernando High School, that's how I ended up at MIT. I'm a proud Tiger and very proud to have grown up in this community that continues to support me and help me be better every day. I owe everything to my community. And that's why I think it's important for us to all get out and vote, especially this year. This is a very important election in November, and all you have to be is a US citizen and 18 to vote. And we need to make sure that our voice is heard, that Pacoima is represented at all levels of government, and that we have a say in who is representing us come this November. So make sure your voice is heard, and we need to go out and vote. I'd like to thank the Pacoima Historical Society for this award. Thank you for thinking of me and for honoring me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to our virtual Pacoima History Day 2020. We want to remind you to get a membership for Pacoima Historical Society at pacoimahistoricalsociety.org. And also DVDs for Pacoima Stories Land of Dreams can be obtained at pacoimastories.com. And one more thing, the book The Entrance Pacoima Story is available on Amazon and at pacoimahistoricalsociety.org. Proceeds benefit the Pacoima Historical Society. We want to thank everybody and remind you, please vote early. Thank you again.
Locked and loaded, finger on the trigger. Before our witnesses, we lost another mother's child. He went down to the ground. Before you take another life, you better think about it twice. They don't care who's wrong or right. Don't roll the dice. Don't roll the dice. I can't put my hands up any higher. No higher. No. I can't put my hands up any higher. No higher. No. I am somebody. I wanna go home. Tell me how can I surrender any better than I already did for you? My hands to the sky. I'm feeling afraid for my life. Before you take another life, you better think about it twice. They don't care who's wrong or right. Don't roll the dice. Don't roll the dice. Any higher, no higher. No, no. Hands up, any higher, no higher. No. See, I am somebody. I wanna go home. I am somebody. Somebody. Won't you please leave me alone? See, I am somebody's baby, somebody's lover, somebody's brother, somebody's friend, somebody's daddy. Now they're waiting for me to come home.
We need justice for our son. We need justice for our son.
Got both my hands where you can see.
We want justice for our son.
Before you take